So the first one is just I want to mention that everyone has their own unique story. So you just need to discover which one you want to write about. I think that students who are typically aged in that 18 age range where you're who are traditionally applying to schools now, nobody thinks that they have anything interesting to say. I've given a lot of different workshops on essays, and students I feel don't feel like they have anything meaningful to say. So I would say that that is not true. I just think you haven't discovered which one you want to write the most about. So try to give that a shot. So number two can kind of help you decide what story, or maybe it's not a story, but it's an idea you have. So what theme do you want to write about? Maybe it's about some sort of like transition that happened in your life, or you want to write about privilege and whether how that has been afforded to you or what that has given to you, or how you realize you have privilege maybe at different aspects of your life. Coming of age story, you could write about. So if you think of themes in terms of like movie genres too, that might be helpful in kind of differentiating pathways you can take with this essay. The third question is there a moment in my life that has shaped who I am? Many students might feel that sports, for example, are something that has highlighted them in their life. This student wrote about an injury through field hockey. I've read a lot of different essays about college and athletic injuries or things of that nature, and you can totally write about that. The experience might not be unique to you, but how can you make that story unique? Because if this is a very popular theme, which it is, that a lot of students have embraced in their college essays, which is completely fine. You want to be able to stand out, and you want to be able to make sure that how you're telling it is unique. So instead of maybe talking about how this injury prevented you from being able to play the sport and you had to learn to cope with it and then you grew from that experience, try to talk about it in a different way. Or it's clear that this experience has meant a lot to you, so how has it transformed your experience? I read an essay about a student who had tried out for a team like literally 3 times and didn't make it, and then by his senior year he did, and he talked about like never giving up, and that was his theme, and it was a lot different than the other kind of athletics essays that I had read before. So that kind of gives you an indication of what I mean. And then also the last question, number 3, does this moment shine me in a good light? And this is a great transition for question number 4. Am I writing myself as a protagonist of my own story, or is the way I'm writing the story highlighting another supporting character along my path? So a lot of times I see a trend in college essays where students are writing themselves as supporting characters of their own story. And while the impact of someone else and what someone else has done for you should not be understated in a college essay if that is your experience, I do think that it's a missed opportunity if we learn about the transformative process of one individual and not the transformative process of you as an entity that we're looking at to admit into our college. So just make sure that you are writing yourself as the protagonist of your own story. Number 5 is how can I grab the reader? What type of introduction would make a powerful parallel to the story that I will tell? I actually was not home when the monster came. My dusty Toyota Camry, Cam, and I were making the windy journey home from work. That is a very powerful beginning because we think that she's going to be in trouble because there's a storm coming, and also she has a long way to go, and she's in a car that might not necessarily be that reliable. So that really grabbed me personally as a reader, and I thought it was a very unique opening. It wasn't something like using onomatopoeia like bam or wham at the beginning of a story, where some people might do that to kind of like drag the reader in. And it's kind of like this, or using action verbs at the beginning of a story as well. So you can go that's also an option for grabbing the reader at the beginning of a story. But this was just using, one traditional sentence that really grabbed the reader and hooked me in for the rest of her journey home. So very unique opening. When I analyze stories in my English classes, what are things that authors are doing that make them stand out? How do the authors construct their prose to give their work unique meaning in comparison to their peers? So I named this question as an opportunity for you to just explore with your English teacher or explore on your own works that you're currently reading. Obviously, these are published individuals, so their writing is very sophisticated and timeless because you're studying in English class. But what are things that they're doing that make them stand out? Like what are they memorable? Why is their writing so good? And I kind of challenge you to look into that and explore that a little bit more and observe how you might be able to pull some of those things that you notice as good styles of writing into your own college essay. Ultimately, we're not looking for published work here by any means in terms of a college essay, but in terms of quality of writing, that would definitely help a little bit. In my college essay, and I'm giving additional information about myself, a new perspective that hasn't already been mentioned in my college application. Is this essay topic and style of writing consistent with the impression I want to give off to my desired college? So again, this just highlights the importance of personal brand development throughout your whole college application process. So as you're observing what you should write about, if your letter of recommendation is from a teacher or a coach, for example, and the coach decides to write you about how great you are at a sport or kind of like the level of experience and dedication you have for your sport, if you decide to write about that in that college essay, just make sure it's different than the way that the coach might write about it in their letter of recommendation. Because although we're looking for consistency, we're also looking for different perspectives of who you are. So remember that the letter of recommendations are kind of like that second person analysis of who you are, and the essay should be kind of like giving us that level of self-awareness. And so if the coach is describing you as a phenomenal athlete, then we already learned that, and we don't need to, it's kind of a missed opportunity again for giving us a different additional information about who you are within the college essay. And then how does my story end? So knowing that sometimes reality doesn't always give us that closure, that not everything has like a happy ending or a smooth ending or is fully resolved at this point in our lives. But does the resolution in your story tie up loose ends or acknowledge that there's more to the story? Don't leave the reader hanging. Make sure that there is kind of something that comes full circle to how you started. Or so, for example, in the essay that I read, the last sentence is luckily I have learned how to play with my monsters. So she connects the theme of the monsters back to the storm that she was personifying as the monster in the first place. And so that really kind of gave us a full circle feel for what she was aiming for. Does my essay structure have a beginning, middle, end, and does it flow? So again, this is that flow part of the rubric that we're talking about. Are you structuring it like that triangle? With the beginning, middle being the climax perhaps, and then the following action/resolution. And lastly, when I read my essay out loud, does anything sound off? So the second question to this is specifically for like non-native English speakers as well, or excuse me, if English is not your mother tongue. Just a piece of advice or suggestion is that if you are not a native English speaker, maybe you have access to a native English speaker that would be willing to read over your work, if that resource is available to you, to just make sure that it flows and sounds appropriate and whatnot. Again, we evaluate applications holistically, so seeing that English is not your first language on a college application may be taken into consideration when we're evaluating the essay as well. So these are kind of my brainstorming ideas and guiding questions to get you started and to kind of think through as you're evaluating where you might be able to improve on your essay as you are editing it.